Okay, guys, so how did you spend? Think back to the last weekend. How did you spend the weekend? And what did you spend your time and your money doing? Where did you go? What did you buy? With whom did you go? And how much did you spend? And how much time did all this take? And how much time did you spend getting entertained and having fun on the weekend and getting leisure? Now, I'm going to show you why, for a lot of you guys, this is exactly why a lot of people end up poor and broke and stuck in their lives. I did a video, I did a video just before this where I talked about the rich mindset versus poor mindset, inspired in part by Robert Kiyosaki's great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is about financial success. But I was actually just pointing out that there's also a mindset difference. It's not just at the level of the financial strategies. Kiyosaki's book focuses on the financial strategies of rich people, rich dad, versus poor people, poor dad. But there's also a difference at the mindset level of thinking between rich mindset and poor mindset. And now I'm telling you guys that there's also a difference between rich weekend and poor weekend. And unfortunately, I have to admit that most people, the way they spend their weekends is in the poor weekend mode, where it's a mode that's destined to keep them poor and make them poor for life. So this is why I asked you what you did this weekend, how much money you spent on it, uh, who you hung out with this weekend, what did you do, how much time did you spend on that, how much time and money did you spend getting entertained. um, Simply because there's a complete difference between a rich weekend, somebody that's enriching themselves through their actions and through their work, and a poor weekend, somebody that's impoverishing themselves through their um, you know pleasure seeking and through what they are doing. So a rich weekend really looks like this. A rich weekend in a lot of cases looks a lot like a rich week, because if you do the research, you find out people like Elon Musk, there was a time when the guy was working like 80, 100-hour weeks. So that means weekend, the guy is essentially just working on Tesla and SpaceX. And look at the guy now. The guy is the richest guy in the world. Same thing with people like Jeff Bezos. There was a time when he was just cranking away on Amazon, back when it was a startup in the dot-com days. Read about Steve Jobs. You find out same thing. Guy was working so hard, that in his lifestyle he actually used to go days or weeks without taking a shower. Guy was just working so hard on his startup. And so he was just so focused on what he was doing. And this is an essential part of a rich weekend. Rich weekend, the guys that really crush it at the top, rich weekend, they're not going to the skiing slopes. If you see the guys that are doing that, and maybe that's all they do for the weekend, is just, and they do that every single weekend, that guy is living actually a poor weekend life. uh, it might be the other stuff that he does during the week that keeps him or makes him rich, but his weekends are a poor person's weekend. Like, he's living a poor person's lifestyle on the weekend, because if all he's doing on the weekend is leisure, that's poor weekend right there. A rich person's weekend is, I closed a big deal this week. I'm on the phone. I'm trying to get a really big deal. A rich person's weekend is they are in the boardroom. They are trying to convince somebody to sell their company to them, and they're gonna make a good deal and make everybody rich off the deal. That's one way to spend a weekend. That's a rich person's way to spend a weekend. That's a rich weekend, because it's a way where, if that's all you do every weekend, you're gonna wind up crazy rich over the course of your life. And poor weekend is I'm hanging out with a bunch of drunks in the local pub. Maybe I'm one of the drunks in the local club. you know, I'm hanging out at the parties in Las Vegas, and I'm getting myself blind drunk, right? Like, that's poor weekend. You do that every weekend for the rest of your life. You're on the way to lifelong poverty, and you're never gonna improve your life. So if that's all you do on all your weekends, you're actually gonna get progressively further and further and further behind. Now you see all these rich people that show you this fun lifestyle on the weekend. They're traveling places, they're going to restaurants. But what a lot of them don't show you is what they do on Monday. Like, look at like the professional athletes. They might show something on Instagram where they're having fun, but they don't show you that the very next morning at 5 a.m., I got up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. before everybody else was awake, and I went into the gym and I worked on, my fitness, and then I went into the training center and I worked on my basketball shooting, and at 3 p.m. that afternoon, I was down at the practice with the rest of the team before the game we had against the Boston Celtics at 6 p.m. that evening. They don't show you this thing. So they might just show you a picture of them living it up in the club, and that's what you think their life is. But they don't actually show you like that's a really small, tiny percentage of their life that it doesn't really make much of a financial difference in them because they're really living rich life every other day of the week, like 6 days of the week, and maybe they're only going out that one day that you see the post on Instagram. And so you start trying to live like that all your life because you don't know any better, and you're destroying yourself because you're living poor life. You're living poor weekend, and you're turning that into poor weeks. And that's how you get poor months, and that's how you get poor years, and that's how you get a poor life. So this is something you guys really need to get straight. You really need to get this straight. Like, are you living rich weekend or poor weekend? Rich week or poor week? How you spend your time, how you spend your days, your weekends, your months, your weeks. This is gonna make all the difference in where you end up financially.